This is BBC One. Now, the Queen's speech broadcast by the Liberal Democrats.
You know, the Conservative opposition are supposed to play an important role in the Constitution. It's their job to oppose the government. But these days, they seem to be spending most of their time opposing each other. The present Conservative shadow cabinet are just that, shadows. One eminent political commentator called them amongst the most second-rate in a generation. They're always ready to heap abuse on the government, but they've no constructive alternative to offer.
They've already said they will reintroduce...
But now, Britain has another shadow cabinet, the new Liberal Democrat team, which I lead. The three words you use, liberalising, decentralising, deregulating, I like that. These are people who really know what they're talking about. Take Phil Willis, our new Shadow Education Secretary. Before he came into Parliament, Phil was a head teacher at a large comprehensive school.
The biggest problem with our education system is class sizes. Since this government came into power, class sizes for 8, 9, 10 and 11-year-olds have risen every year. And in secondary schools, we now have the largest class sizes we've had for 20 years. And you talk to any teacher in a school and they will tell you that class size matters. It's the amount of time they can give to each individual child to develop their potential. If you go to Scotland, where the Liberal Democrats are now in power with Labour, the very first thing they did was to get more money into our schools for education. And if it's good enough for Scotland, it's good enough for England and Wales, and that's what we want to see.
The Liberal Democrat shadow cabinet will be constantly harrying the government to do better. Labour's performance just isn't as good as they pretend. They could do much more for pensioners, much more for the police, and much more too for the health service. The government have been playing with figures on health. While the numbers on the waiting lists are at last beginning to come down, the length of time patients have to wait in pain is getting longer. And that's what really matters to people.
Hospitals are crying out for more nurses. There are now 15,000 unfilled nursing jobs in the NHS, but the government just isn't doing enough to get those vital posts filled. In particular, it needs to offer extra incentives to get people who've left the health service to come back.
If there's one area where the government's disappointed people more than any, it's our transport system. It's got worse, not better, since Labour came to power. And the new plans they announced on Wednesday are too little, too late. Labour are actually on course to spend less than the Conservatives on public transport during the lifetime of this Parliament.
Here in London and all over the country, travellers are getting angry and frustrated. Buses and trains are more and more overcrowded and dirty. They're less and less reliable. Only the Liberal Democrats have the imagination and the commitment to rescue public transport.
We Liberal Democrats don't believe in hurling abuse at our opponents just for the sake of it. We're quite prepared to work with other parties where they're doing the right thing. But the government hasn't done nearly enough to tackle the problems in our schools, our hospitals, and our public transport system. The Conservatives, of course, were responsible for most of these problems in the first place. They don't have the answers to them now. Only the Liberal Democrats offer a fresh and credible alternative.
If you want to find out more about the Liberal Democrats or to join the party, you can write to Charles Kennedy, Free Post, London SW1P 3BR. Or you can find us on our website at www.libdems.org.uk.
That was the Queen's speech broadcast by the Liberal Democrats. You can can see it again at 11:20 on BBC Two.